The following true bear attack is one of the most gruesome attacks in America about a bear who severely mauled a man's face. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying bear attack on Chase Dellwo. Welcome to Final Affliction. With its rich agricultural history, the city of Chateau in Montana evokes striking images of a green landscape with a variety of wildlife. It is home to some of the world's most elegant species in the animal kingdom. Mule deers, wolves, badgers, squirrels, moose, elks, and bears, both black and grizzly, all coexist in this biota. This automatically makes Chateau a great venery ground for game hunting, and so it is no surprise that on October 3, 2015, 26-year-old Chase Dellwo and his brother, 30-year-old Shane, decided to head west to Bynum to bow hunt elk. Having been brought up on a family ranch in Blackleaf, the two brothers were experienced big game hunters who used bows as their preferred weapon. It was a chilled Saturday morning, and the clocks were striking 8. Being October, Chateau was immersed in intense cloud cover with temperatures going as low as 7. The vile wind was full of snow, with each exhalation leaving a condensed cloud of air. This limited their vision to as far as only 5 meters of their surroundings. But the thought of hot, sumptuous elk steak that the brothers would eat to the marrow of the last bone was enough motivation for them to face the harsh weather. Their limited visibility meant that hunting by stealth was going to be a huge challenge, and so the pair hatched a plan. They geared up and decided to split. Shane, the older brother, was going to scale up a ridge and wait while Chase was to drive the elk herd towards a creek bed. The ridge Shane had climbed provided a clear aerial view of the creek bed where he would size one of the elks before taking it down. They had devised the perfect plan, free of any flaws, or so they thought. As Chase was meandering the creek bed, the heavens suddenly opened and the rain started pouring. Just like a musical chime, it began as tapping as a drop hit his shoulders, but it soon developed to a rattling pitter-patter with more drops pouring. With the snow, misty air, and now rain, the weather was worsening with every step he took. He wondered if it would be a successful hunt given the shortcomings. Suddenly, a loud bugle, followed by a chuckle at the end, cut him short on his thoughts. He knew that sound, having gotten used to it during his many hunting escapades. It was a bull elk. Judging by the origin of the sound, the elk was nearby. Vainly, his fiend mind struggled to comprehend the direction of the source of the bugle. The creek was covered with rich, soft grass that was beginning to get buried beneath the falling snow. To the north and east of him was the wonderful panorama of the rocky ridges and mountains partially covered in snow. And on one of those ridges was his brother patiently waiting to strike. Armed with his bow, Chase focused all his senses on finding the elk. Nothing in the world was going to stop him from completing this mission, not even the droning music of running water from the nearby streams that were about to freeze because of the cold. But before he could go further, an eerie feeling that he was being watched stopped him in his tracks. Motionless, Chase sniffed the wind. The air here changed. It smelt different. A scent had come to his nostrils, one he had not smelt in a long time. It stirred him strangely. If only he had been able to see distinctly for just 1 mile, his eyes would have discovered it. He reared up 3 steps behind, as if trying to slowly rest his haunches and sit like a trained dog with his bow raised to level his face, ready to release the arrow. But before he could, the bear leaped, attacking him as if it had been waiting for this moment all its life. This sent him to the ground with a thud. The grizzly bear was huge. On its hind legs, it was taller than any human, with its feet planted firmly on the wet, muddy ground. With its shaggy, thick brown fur, it seemed to bear the mysteries of nature with it. The bear then opened its huge mouth, grumbled, and then sank its 3-inch fangs into Chase's left eye and skull. completely catching him by surprise. As it is with nature, the hunter sometimes becomes the hunted. Having grown up on a family ranch, bear encounters were not alien to him, as he had been charged by lone bears not once or twice. However, even with this rich, expansive background, he had been unable to avoid this nose-to-nose encounter with a grizzly bear. If only the weather was a bit more welcoming, Chase would have seen the bear from afar and avoided it. For a moment, the bear stopped attacking. Chase was silent and immobile. Bleeding and seriously injured, he felt helpless. He knew that death was within and knocking. But the ordeal was far from over. The tenacious beast pinned him down with its clawed paws and once again let out a thundering roar as if announcing its dominance. It then took a step back, an opportunity that Chase used to sit up. But this turned out to be a mistake, as the bear came at him again, this time round biting him on his leg and shaking him bitterly before throwing him up into the air. He came thudding down, but the bear was not done yet, as it went straight for his head. The picture of his beautiful wife Becca back at home waiting for him, and his brother high up on the ridge crossed before Chase, and he knew that he had met his fate on this mushy creek with a splatter of soft mud and snow. It was during this short flashback that his memory came to his aid, as he remembered an article that his grandmother had once shown him on how animals, especially bears, have sensitive bad gag reflexes on their soft palates. With great courage, he mastered the little strength left in him and with all his might shoved his right arm into the bear's throat. Perplexed and confused, the bear disappeared into the snow while gagging uncomfortably. Chase knew that it wouldn't take long before the bear came back to finish him off, or even worse, he would bleed to death. He had to move. His camouflage hunting gear had been torn to tatters and he was covered in blood and mud. With his palms, he wiped the blood off his eyes. He chose flight over flight and dawdled through the creek bed's terrain towards the direction of the ridge he had seen his brother take. From the ridge, Shane saw his brother waving and thought that the cavalry was finally here. He positioned himself with his bow and arrow, ready to take the shot of his life. However, after taking a second look at his younger sibling, this time with more of a degree of acuity, Shane realized the dire state of his brother. He immediately dashed down to him and administered first aid. He stopped the bleeding but was worried about the possibility of internal bleeding and had to rush Chase to the hospital. He hurriedly carried Chase to the car, gunned the engine, and pressed his foot hard on the gas pedal. The engine revved and the tires screeched as the rubber came to contact with the tarmac. Leaving a cloud of smoke behind, the air was filled with the smell of burnt diesel and rubber. Within seconds, the speed gauge was jerked a little over 100 miles per hour. The 20-minute drive felt like an eternity as Chase seemed to lose a decade with each breath. Luckily, there were only a few cars on the road, and within no time, they saw a big blue and white hospital sign. They were now at the emergency wing of the Benefice Teton Medical Center in Choteau. Fortunately, they arrived just in time to save his life. After a 5.5 hours long surgery, Chase's face was covered in hundreds of stitches. And when asked for his advice to anyone who wants to go hunting, he said that they should never go alone. And he is right. Don't go hunting alone in rainy, misty weather. Try as much as possible to live in agreement with nature. After all, if you respect it, it will always reward you. If you don't, you may end up meeting your final affliction.